your business will grow as much as you do.
What does it take to scale to 7 figures and beyond and grow with purpose? Tune in for stories, strategies, and tactics from founders and business leaders who've been there and done that. Welcome to another episode of the Scaling Business Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be catching up with my good friend, Nidal Rasheed. I've had the privilege of knowing Nidal for a long time. I think we met around 2012.
About then, yeah.
Around then, when during the end, I think we met through the entourage.
Possibly. Yeah, it would have been around the business, the networking groups. Yeah.
Networking group for a long time. And for as long as I've known you, you've always worked in the property sector.
Been in the property industry for over 16 years now, so it's been a while.
Oh, wow. I want to dive deeper into how you got started in the property sector. But before we go that, I wanted to, get to know you better as a person and really dig into your story. Your life here in Australia with your family as a kid in the 90s. What was some of your initial experiences and how did that shape what you ended up doing in the property sector or what you've ended up doing as a career?
Yeah, that's
I've
great
noticed
question.
before that you had a cafe and then
Done a lot of things over the years. Yeah.
yes.
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast and on your show. Look, I guess my story really started. I'm a son of a migrant family. So I was born in Lebanon, but we moved around a lot when I was young. So I was born in Lebanon, but we lived in Africa at the time in Sierra Leone. So I grew up there for a couple of years. And from there, we came to Adelaide for a couple of years and to Melbourne for a couple of years and went back to Lebanon for 5 years and back to Melbourne for 5 years. And now I've been in Adelaide for the last 24 years. So Adelaide's home. But I guess that moving around forced me to have to adapt to different environments, different places, schools, new friends, things like that. So it kind of taught me the early stages of entrepreneurship, which was you got to be flexible and be able to adapt to your environments and be able to, get comfortable in being uncomfortable. So that was probably the first step. The reason why we moved around a lot is because my father had different businesses and ventures and things like that over the years, some that were successes and some that had failed. That forced us to move around. But by the time, my earliest memory, I guess, of when my own thoughts started to come together around business and entrepreneurship and wanting to make money was probably when I was about 10 years old. I was in Lebanon at the time. It was 1996. There was a war breaking out between Lebanon and Israel at the time. My father had basically ran out of money. We went to Lebanon to build we started a brick factory over there. He had a whole range of issues and challenges. And in the end, no more money, more bills than money coming in, and he had to do something. So he decided to come back to Australia, but he couldn't afford to bring us all with him. So he had to leave first and we followed. On the day that he left, I remember very vividly him telling me, look, you're the man of the house now. And he gave me all the money he had in his pocket and said, look after your mum and sister. Now, as a 10-year-old, I felt a big sense of responsibility that I took that seriously. So from that moment on, I remember there were times where we didn't have a lot of money, and there were times where we were limited on what we could buy and foods we could eat and places we could go. And I remember telling myself at 10 years old, I want to make sure that I never let my family go through that ever again. And it was just a very, innocent thought as a 10-year-old, but that seed started to grow into something that by the time I was 14, we had moved to Australia. My dad was, back on his feet, and I started finding an interest in business. So I read a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, at 14 years old. And I remember by the time I got to the last chapter, there was a story about a kid who was able to give up on a reward that he wanted straight away. He had saved up money for some golf clubs, didn't buy them. He went and bought some vending machines, and the money that he made from the vending machines, he then went and bought golf clubs. And the biggest lesson I took from that book was you got to learn how to make money work for you rather than you work for money. And for as long as I could remember, I've been obsessed with that idea of how do I make my money work for me? How do I create a passive income? And over the years, from business to business and, one challenge after, to the next and one lesson after the next, I realized that the best way for me to achieve my goals and, achieve that success was through property. Because I I'd obviously got into business at an early age. I started my first vending machine business at 14. So I had 6 lolly machines where you'd put $1 in, you turn the mechanism, and you'd
Oh,
get a
wow.
handful of M&Ms or Skittles or mints or something like that.
Was that in school?
That was while I was at school.
Oh, wow.
So I'd have the machines out at pizza shops, milk bars. This is, delis. I had one at the University of South Australia. I had one at the mechanics shop. So I was the kid that always had rattling coins in his pocket, and that was my first taste of business. From there, over the years, I studied the commerce at uni. I finished uni, and I realized that I didn't want to just work a job. So I actually had an opportunity to buy into a restaurant business. So I was 22, no real bricks and mortar business by that stage. So I'd taken my first risk and went into a restaurant business of all. And about 2.5 years into that business, I found myself nearly bankrupt.
Uh, what do you feel like caused you to get into that situation?
Look, I think there was a lot of things that I just didn't know about those type of businesses. It was at the start of the GFC as well. So this was the end of 2008 up until mid 2010. So probably timing wasn't the best, lack of experience. I probably had the wrong motivations as well because I wasn't really trying to follow my passion or trying to follow anything that I was, I thought this was just a business like any other business, and I just wanted to get in and try and build it. So
Get in and you found an opportunity and you just wanted to.
yeah,
You,
I just wanted to get into any opportunity I could sink my teeth into at the time. So went ahead, did it, and then realized very quickly that that probably wasn't the right recipe for me. So 2.5 years into that business, I found myself. I woke up one day in a hospital bed. What had happened is I'd actually passed out behind the bar. So I was running on fumes, to put it nicely. Very high stress, very low nutrition, just a lot going on in my life, and ended up, uh, yeah, falling behind the bar. And then someone put me in my car and took me to the hospital. Woke up in the bed, and then I remember there was a doctor and then my mum in the room, and the doctor's telling my mum, "Look, you have to make sure that your son doesn't do this to himself again because, this time he was lucky, no damage, but next time it could be potentially worse." So my mum freaked out, naturally. She went home, she was telling my dad and my sister, and they were talking about it as a family. And then next thing I know, they come to me and they said, "Look, we're gonna send you to Lebanon uh, next week. We're gonna talk to your business partner and everything, but you need to go to Lebanon, go for a month, and then decide on what you want to do with your life, change your life, and then come back." And I remember at that point, it was like a bit of a wake up call because I had some intervention. I had people from the outside telling me what was going wrong in my life. And I never had the opportunity to take that own view on my life or kind of get that helicopter view. So I spent the next month really asking myself some tough questions and trying to identify what is it that I really want to be doing? What is it that I want to do for work? What am I prepared to do for work and not prepared to do for work? What are the things that interest me? What are the things that are passions of mine? What are the things that I could do if money wasn't an issue? So all these things kept revolving around property because I just had a natural interest in property, obviously liking the idea of passive income and wanting to be a professional and things like that. So I decided while I was in Lebanon that I was going to come back and get licensed and start working in property. And that was in 2009. So came back, did my license, and got into the industry that way.
oh wow. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh wow. Um, so you're always that entrepreneurial kid. You're always that you had a really good early start. Um, what are some of the, I guess, misconceptions when you got in the property industry? There is what you expect it to be versus what you found it to be.
Of course.
What are some of those gaps for you?
Look, I think it's a common misconception about our industry is that from the outside in, people look at it and think it's a glamorous industry to be in, that you make a lot of money, you get to go out all the time, you drive nice cars, wear nice clothes, all that kind of stuff. And you know, for for me, it was a bit of a realization that property or real estate could be either one of the best paying careers or one of the worst paying careers, depending on the effort and the level of commitment and persistence and, obviously dedication that I had to that career. So I had to get comfortable with the idea of delayed reward. knowing that any of the work that I do right now is not going to come to fruition straight away. It's going to happen at some time in the future. And I use the metaphor of a farmer going out and planting lots of seeds in the soil. And I knew that out of, every 100 seeds that I plant, maybe 20 of them are going to get eaten by the birds, which might be my competition. Another 20 of them are going to be, withered away from the elements, from sun and rain and all that, which could be, external factors. I knew that even after some of them grew, they might die for no reason, no fault of my own. I knew that even if they did grow and they came to fruition, some bird might come and, take whatever that's mine. It's a harvest. So all of these things kind of made me go into it with the right expectation, is that I'll have to plant lots of seeds, expect that some of them are going to die, and I'm only going to be left with a small amount at the end. So if I wanted to get a bigger amount, I just need to plant lots more seeds. And that was the thought that really drove me to just work really, really hard, because after I nearly went bankrupt, I had to work hard to make sure that I didn't go bankrupt, because I made a decision at that time, is that if I'm going to sign those papers and sort of take the easy way out, then that's a decision that has consequences that I'm going to have to live with long term. So it's kind of like short term, solution for long term problems and long term pain. Whereas if I went the other way and did the short term pain, then I would have that longer term relief and long term solution, and the ability to, uh, I guess, rebound in a positive way. So I made the decision that no, I wanted to pay back whatever debts I was owing. I renegotiated everything, and then I started working day and night. So at the start of my career, I was working multiple jobs. I was working in different sales roles. I was working at nights. I was doing whatever I can just to keep some income coming through, because not only was I trying to recover from being bankrupt, but I also had met my partner at the time and made a decision that I wanted to get engaged and get married and obviously, start my life. So I knew there was a big cost and expense involved with that. So that became my I guess the fuel to the fire that really made me work really hard at the start. But in terms of the misconception, yes, from the outside looking in, it looks glamorous and like not a lot of work. But once you're in, you realize that there's a mountain of work, and the road ahead is very steep.
One thing I want to ask, and I'm only asked this because I've gone through that almost get bankrupt stage.
Yeah.
I remember when one of the businesses I've had in the past collapsed. It was so bad that I even had another opposition in my house twice,
Wow.
right? Like it was that bad. I almost came close to losing my house. And there's and obviously had to shut down the business, go through the whole work hard, pay off debts, pay off debts. And there's the fear that you get, like that overwhelming sense of like, I never want to put myself in this situation again. But there's also that recovery of like, when you start off a business and a business fails, there's certain part of your identity that is attached to being a business owner, and then that fails, and then you're stripped bare, and you almost don't know who you are anymore. And then you recover and you pull yourself together. A lot of people struggle with pulling themselves together, and let alone even going to what you and I have done, which is pull yourself together, pay off the debts, clean everything, get back to normal. What was your process? What was your process of has have you found that hold you back? That fear of I never want to go back again hold you back, or what was your mental process of getting yourself out of that? First of all, what is your mental process of getting yourself out of that job of like, damn, and then I failed, and then has that held you back at all over the years?
No, I wouldn't say it's held me back. I would have said it's added more fuel to the fire, and it's always served as a reminder of where I don't want to end up.
Yes.
I remember the early days when I was trying to recover from that. So the mindset that I had was, as long as I can find a little win each day and I know I'm moving forward, that's all I care about. There was a mountain of problems and challenges around me at the time, but every day I would remind myself that if I just had a good phone call with someone and I booked an appointment and something that could come to fruition at some point in the future, I took that as a win. So I'd bank that and I'd hold it and I'd remember it. And then the next day I'd come in, and every day my focus was, how do I just get a little win? How do I just sort of crawl that little bit out? And then I'd read a story at the time where it was about a donkey that fell in a ditch. and everyone was trying to get this donkey out, but they couldn't pull it out. It was too heavy, and they found no way. So they decided that they were going to bury the donkey. So they'd grab the shovel, just chuck some dirt on it, and then the donkey would just shake itself off and step on it. And then kept, the more they shoveled, the more the donkey shook itself off, and it, elevated itself until they had filled up the hole, and then the donkey had just literally stepped over the edge and kept walking. And I remember at the time thinking to myself, every bit of dirt that comes on me, I just have to focus on shaking it off and then, keep that win in mind. And I think that was those little micro baby steps that I was forcing myself to take at the time to start moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a better way of doing it. Because I think for me, what I notice is I let myself grovel too much in that stage. And it took me a lot of time to snap out of it and kind of rebuild yourself. Because you're almost having to rebuild yourself out.
Us.
You're almost having to create yourself a new identity and really find who you are and all that kind of stuff
Absolutely.
that goes with it.
But that also goes back to I don't know if it's a saying or a thought or what, but as an entrepreneur, your business will only grow
Mm,
as much as you grow. So when you go through those challenges, that's a growth. It's really just stretching you. The only way a muscle can grow is when you stretch the fibers, you rip them apart, and then they can come back together bigger and stronger. And I feel that's the same thing in life, is that the the process of growth is not comfortable, it's not easy, it's not fun, but it's necessary. And I think the more uh, I guess experiences you can go through, especially in the early stages, that you can shake off and keep moving forward, that's what defines your character in business, and that's what gives you the resilience later on to deal with the bigger problems that will come when obviously you have more money, more problems.
yeah, because it never really stops. The more you grow, the problems just get bigger and you just get stronger, I guess, for the process.
You just expand.
You just expand, really.
Mm.
Yeah. Transitioning now from that to coming back in yourself, working, because I think you'd worked for a little bit for a property development
I worked
company.
for Divine Homes
Yeah,
for a
Divine,
few years.
yeah, they have Divine Homes. And then um, transitioning back to starting your own business. What were the early days of the business like for you?
Yeah. So initially, I wasn't actually going to start my own business because I was really happy with my job at Divine Homes. In my first year, I became the number one consultant in SA, and then by the second year, I was number one nationally. And the reason for that is because I just took the same, I guess, skill sets and attitude and approach towards it that I had done previously. Is that I just got to go out there and work really hard and do the numbers. So in my first couple of weeks at Divine, I was brand new to the industry by that stage as well. So I had never really sold property. Well, I had worked for property companies, but I wasn't very successful by that stage. So I hadn't really sold much. So by the time I started with Divine, I was as a new building consultant. I had sales skills because I was selling solar and other things over the phone back then, and that was one of my part-time jobs and side jobs. So I had the sales skills to sell over the phone, and I just decided to uh, I guess implement those same skill set in a different industry. So I'd call people up, book them in for appointments, explain to them what they could be doing and things like that, and then I was able to get the first few sales straight away because I started at a time where everyone else had stopped working. It was around the Christmas period. And I just decided, no, I'm going to keep going. So during that holiday period, I kind of built some momentum and it all kind of snowballed from there. But a few years into the business, I was at the top of my game. I was doing really well. I went to the company and I said, look, can you let me build a team? So can I hire some people? I can get them on as telemarketers or as appointment setters or as hosts or whatever. I'll get them to do a lot of the groundwork for me. So then I'm just doing the high dollar productive stuff, which is closing deals and putting people through and making money. So every time I would raise a suggestion with the company, it would have to go, a few levels up and then a few levels down because it was a public listed company. So it was a big structure and nothing ever happened quickly. So by the time I had asked, several times and kept getting knocked back, I thought, well, it's just limiting my growth because I'm limited to what I could sell, where I could work, what I could do. And it was at that point that I decided I wanted to go out on my own and start Silvertail.
how do you level up your sales skill on the early days? What are some of the things you did that was able to help you become better than everyone else? Is there, I guess what I'm looking for is some practical things of like, I made more calls, I did this, like some of the things you actually did to help you um accelerate your early careers. And where did you get your sales skills from?
Yeah, look, there's no shortage of information out there at the moment, or for the last decade or so. Uh, if I mean, it didn't really come from one specific place because it was I guess, a combination of information over the years. But the things that made the biggest difference in shifting the needle
Yeah.
was realizing that out of every 100 people that I spoke to, a certain percentage was going to convert into sales. So we had this exercise a while back where we track our numbers. So we have a sales funnel and look at how many calls, how many conversations we're having, how many appointments we're setting, how many expressions of interest to how many sales. And let's say that out of every 100 calls, it was going to translate to one sale. And that one sale equals, let's say, $500. So that would tell me that every time I pick up the phone, regardless of whether I, you know, made a contact or not, that was worth a certain amount of money because every dial was worth money, regardless of whether they picked up or not. So that was the first thing. It's just kind of getting mathematically scientific around just how numbers convert. Second thing was obviously consuming the right information and knowledge from the right sources as well. So I got a bit obsessed with learning about different selling techniques and different sales trainers and different scripts and things like that. So it was a lot of test and measuring at the beginning. But then I also realized that there's different levels of I guess, consciousness when it comes to your abilities. So when I first started, I knew I was unconsciously incompetent. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And then after some time, I became consciously incompetent. So I became aware of what I didn't know. And then by being aware, I was able to fix some of those issues. So then I became consciously competent. So then I was aware of of the right things that I was doing. But then over time, once you've done something thousands of times, you become unconsciously competent. So you don't have to think about what you do to be able to do it. So understanding that, look, if you want to master anything, you need to put in, 10,000 hours or do something 10,000 times or whatever it is. So then it became a race to 10,000 is how quickly, how many calls, how many people can I be speaking to every day? That's going to help me edge closer towards, becoming unconsciously competent and being able to achieve a lot of these results. So yeah, I guess I put it down to the numbers, obviously the education, but then most of all is the action and the implementation of it, because selling is a transference of energy and thoughts from one person to the next. And if I'm convinced about something and I want to convince you about it, that's a form of selling. So for me, it was like, okay, how do I convince every person that I speak to that what I'm recommending is the right thing? And how can I become passionate about it? How can I get my energy up to the point where I can transfer that energy onto someone else? And just being mindful of those little, techniques here and there is, I guess, what sort of came together to create that overall success. But I wouldn't say it's one particular thing. It's obviously a lot of things over the years.
A combination of different things, but you're experimenting, you're tweaking, you're practicing. And I like what you talked about. You're focusing on the variables that you can control. How many dials can you make, as opposed to like thinking, I've got to make a sale. Like you bring it down to numbers. If I do if I put in these inputs,
Exactly
these are the
right.
outputs that I'm likely to get. And I think the problem is a lot of people tend to stress out too much about the outputs. While sometimes the outputs you can't really control. It's all about the inputs. So you start your business, and you start your business and you start growing it. I'm really interested. I've noticed your business over the years has transitioned over the years. First of all, we never even got to really discuss. We never really got to say what you actually do in your business. Maybe this would be a good opportunity to sort of share what you actually do, and then we can delve a little bit deeper, because I'm really excited in terms of how your business has evolved over the years
Yep.
and how you've brought in different services. Maybe we can sort of start by what you do, and
Yeah, of
and
course.
then we can explore how it's evolved.
So what Silvertail does is essentially help people play Monopoly in real life. So we help
I like that.
property, thank you,
Mm.
property buyers, whether they're first-time buyers or first-time investors or whatever they are. We help them get on and move up the property ladder. The way we do that is through helping them find property opportunities. So whether it's a first home buyer looking at getting into their first home and with a low deposit, so that's where we started, is helping first home buyers. We then moved into first-time investors and early investors, so people that want to build up their property portfolio through, retail investing solutions. So something that is going to be a passive investment. It's low touch. It's going to grow in value, give them an income, and give them some tax benefits along the way. From there, we started looking at more, diverse investing opportunities. So things like how do we do two properties on the under the one roof
Mm.
and get multiple income streams out of one property. So we went to duplexes and triplexes and dual key incomes and all sorts of stuff. From there, we then started working with a lot of developers as well. So people who wanted to find the site that for them to develop. So now I do a lot of I guess similar to a buyer's agent, where I go help them find a development site. We do the feasibility. We look at how many properties we can build out of the project, what the end sale is going to be, and then we kind of help them move down that path to becoming a developer. And then naturally over the years, we've then helped manage a lot of our clients' properties for them. So we have a sizable rent roll that we manage. And yeah, we kind of became an integrated property agency where we can pretty much do the buying, the selling, the managing, the development stuff. And then naturally, I've always enjoyed coaching and consulting. So that
Yeah.
sort of came on as an add-on to the business. And over the years, we've just found more ways to add value to the person who's looking at, winning at the game of Monopoly, basically.
Awesome. What's been your e- evolution in terms of deciding where are we going to start? How do we keep adding more services while maintaining what you've already got? Um, what's been that process like? That the transition from, okay, we have these services and then we add this and then we add that.
Yeah.
Has it been more like you identifying a gap in the market? Has it been a case of like customers saying we want that, so we provided more of it? Or how has it been the evolution of growth for you?
For the most part, it's been a direct response to a need that's growing within our client base.
Okay.
So when we first started and we were just selling house and land packages and first home buyer stuff, we had no need to do property management. But as we started doing more investor sales, so investment sales, a lot of our clients were having to go to other property managers to manage their investments. And the conversations they were having with them was different from the conversation we were having with they were having with us. So there was always a bit of conflict, or they're not aware of what's happening, or the property managers were kind of having a lot of turnover in their offices, and it was just jeopardizing the relationships that we had with our clients and some of the long-term goals that we've set out for them, or we've set out together. So it's been a direct response in the sense that, okay, we've now got, let's say, 100 clients who've all got investment properties in South Australia, and they're having problems, a big portion of them are having problems with their property manager. Well, why don't we look after their properties for them, and then we can alleviate a lot of the headaches that they're having, so they can continually invest. Because what we found is if someone has a bad experience with owning an investment property, they're very unlikely to go and invest again. And that does more damage and detriment to them than the agents that would have got the sale, because if they don't continually buy more properties, they're missing out on all that future growth, which ultimately, means that it's going to be harder for them to invest later. So that was kind of the reason why we added some of the stuff in there. And naturally, as an entrepreneur, you're always thinking of ways to add more value, thinking of different income streams, different ways you can, add value to your business. And when I started the business, it was a few years before I decided to do property management. Um, and I came to a point in time where I realized that my business is still worth zero, because if I leave the business, or if I come to sell it, or if I go away on holiday, that business cannot produce any income. Whereas with property management, it was different because it had a recurring revenue model, as well as it added value to the company. So it was a bit of a, a financial, business management decision to go, okay, now this is the path that we're going to go, because if we continue doing this for the next 10 years, we want our business to be worth X amount of money rather than zero. And that's probably, I guess, for the most part, why we explored different avenues.
Okay. What has been some of the challenges you've experienced as you start to scale your business? Now that you've got a lot of multiple services in multiple, for lack of a better word, divisions and brands. Um, what's been the process? What's been some of the challenges you've experienced in terms of growing out all that, but still trying to keep the magic?
Mm.
Try to make sure the service is still good. Make sure that everything is still is still going well.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think when I first started the business, I had more challenges than what I got
Ah,
now,
okay.
even though we're running more. And it sort of goes back to that original thought that your business will grow as much as you do. So when I first started the business, I can now say that I was very immature when I first started because I was,
And we all.
yeah. So I was making a lot of bad decisions. I was growing too quickly. I was just saying yes to everyone and everything. And as a result, I would have to deal with the consequences after the honeymoon period passed. Because when you start something, it's always exciting at the start, but then the challenges come in after. So in my first year, one example would be growing too quickly. We went from 0 to 17 staff within our first year and a half. So we outgrew our office. We were forced to go find a bigger place. We had a bigger payroll. We had a lot of pressure on the business when it still was not set up to handle that kind of volume, I guess, or that kind of uh, level of stuff. So as a result of me making those early decisions, 6 months, 12 months after we had sort of hit that point, I started having a lot of challenges as a result of having a big team. So I was then forced to scale down. But in that process, it taught me a lot about myself, taught me about my business, my comfort zone, what I'm prepared to do, not prepared to do moving forward, etc. So every step that I took after that was always a little bit more calculated. I always thought about the costs and the expenses and past the honeymoon period and what would happen if this went wrong and what happens if this person left me and things like that because I was now forced to think that way. Whereas before I didn't, it was never a thought that came to mind. And I guess every time we've added something in, it's not like it's taken away from something else. It's been a case of us expanding and being able to deliver more. And I relate that to an example of when you have kids.
Mm.
So when you have your first child, you think to yourself, this is it. Like everything that I've got belongs to this child, or my love, or my energy, or my passion, my commitment. Everything is for this one kid. And then you watch this kid grow up and then comes a time where you decide to have a second kid. And before that second kid arrives, you start having thoughts to yourself and guilty thoughts like, am I going to find as much love for the second one like I did for the first? Am I going to have enough energy and patience and care for the second one like I do with the first? And it almost feels like, a bit of a guilt trip because you're having to take away from one to give to the other. But when that second child arrives, something incredible happens. All of a sudden, your heart expands, your life expands, your love expands, your care expands, your everything about you expands, and you find that you've got just as much love for the second child as you do for the first. You have just as much patience and care and attention for the second like you did with the first. And there's a secret in life that revolves around expanding and putting more pressure on yourself and that. So what I found is that whenever we have done something, it's been a case of us just being able to expand, finding more within, and being able to let that outflow to others. So it's I wouldn't say it's to do one thing you have to take away from
Yeah,
something else.
of
I
course,
think it's a
of course.
case of how do you grow as a
Yeah.
person to be able to accommodate more and still have some left over.
What has been some of the, I don't always like to talk about like challenging and stuff like that. What has been some of the proudest moment for you as a business owner as you get to grow your business to this stage of the business?
Proudest moment. First thought that came to mind was family.
Yes.
that's that's
Yes.
that's where my mind went. But as a business owner, one of my proudest moments, I think, would be hitting certain milestones in terms of After we made our first year, after the first 5 years, after the first 10 years. So we had our 10-year birthday at Silvertail last year. Didn't make a big deal of it or anything like that, but it was
What happened? You used to throw the sickest parties ever. I remember back.
our first birthday party was wild.
I remember those parties.
But again, as you age and mature, and you realize that, look, it's not about the parties and the outside. It's more about how you are, sort of from the inside. And I think it's really hitting that 10-year mark. I think was a big one for me personally, because it reaffirmed to me that, look, only 1% of businesses will ever make it to this point. So you've gone through the worst. You've gone through all the challenges, all the wars, all the problems, all the fights, all the challenges. So that was one thing. The other thing, I guess, is having the amount of success for the clients that at the start we always had. We always knew that, look, they're going to buy property, they're going to be really, they're going to be better off. So, and one of our goals was to create like $20 million worth of growth for our clients, which we achieved a long time ago. But last year, I had one of my developer clients came to me and he was telling me a story about how he was able to help. I'm not sure whether it was his mother-in-law or someone from the family, an older lady in the family. And the story was that she wanted to invest, but she's not in a position to invest. She had about 50K or something like that she wanted to put into an investment. So he said to her, look, how about you put some money into this project, and then I will pay you something like a 20% return. So, like from that 50, she's going to make 10 grand. And for her, that's a lot of money. And for her, that's, like she's achieving a big goal for her. And for him, he's achieving a big goal because for him, one of his main goals was to be able to help his family and friends and the people around him. And when he was telling me that story, he was getting a little bit emotional because I could see that it meant a lot to him to be able to help his mother-in-law. I can't remember the exact relation, but it was very important to him. And then it made me remember one of our earlier goals that we had, which was to create that positive ripple effect. And when we first launched, I remember you used to say, our mission is to create Silvertails. So a Silvertail is a person who's affluential and influential in their community, someone who helps others and does good and, creates that positive ripple effect. And I realized to myself, we've actually achieved something that we were just randomly talking about 10 years ago, but it's now in real life. Like this lady who is now making, a return on her investment. I've never met her. I don't know who she is. But she's positively impacted by a decision that we made, 10 years ago when we decided to start this business. So that's something I was really proud of. And, they're the little moments that make me appreciate the business that I'm in and, the opportunity that I have to be part of that ripple effect.
That's exciting. How has your business evolved? I mean, the last few years, the property sector has gone nuts. And to a point in time whereby people almost feel like it's now almost unaffordable to get in and stuff like. But that could be my perception. You're into it, so I'm sure you shed some light there. How has been the evolution in terms of like selling a product that all of a sudden changes? How have you, I guess, coped with that like steep descent in the property sector, and how do you go about like helping your clients, I guess, deal with a product that they would have spent this much and then now that it's worth this much? And yeah, I would like you to shed some light in there because it's a few unknowns from my end.
Look, in terms of the clients that have dealt with us over the last 10 years, it's safe to say that they're all really, really happy with the results they've had. For the new entrants into the market, it's the same conversation that I had with those earlier clients 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago. And the conversation has always been is that property is a long-term game. It's a long-term strategy. It comes with a delayed reward. So you invest your money that you can afford to invest now, and you obviously try and get three things out of it. For us, it's getting good capital growth on the property, getting a good rental yield, and getting some tax benefits where possible, depending on their structure and their goals and all that stuff. But the conversation is still the same, because if I was to look at the property market over the last 100 years, okay, and you were to average out the rate of growth, it's going to be sitting around 7 to 8% on average. So they say property doubles every 7 to 10 years on average. South Australia sort of goes quiet for a little period and then it jumps up, and then it goes quiet and then it jumps up.
Yeah.
So what our conversation with our clients has been is don't wait and buy real estate. Buy real estate and then wait. And it's the same conversation I'm having with these guys coming into the market, because my personal belief is that between now and 2030 is probably the last opportunity where people can still get into the market with relatively low costs. So when I say low costs, is things like 2% deposits and options and no stamp duty, and people still being able to get into the market in some way, shape or form, even if they are limited financially. Whereas in 5 years' time, once things get a lot harder than what they are now, I think it's going to be much more difficult for people to have the same opportunities as now.
Why 2030? What do you think is going to happen in the next
Look,
5 years?
it's just a projection
Oh,
of how the
projection.
property prices are going. Also, when you look at what's happening with the economy with money and the devaluation of money. So if you've had your money in your bank for the last 5 years, it's worth a lot less now than what it was back then. So it makes sense to put that money into assets, whether it's real estate, shares, crypto, gold, whatever it may be, because that's your way of hedging against future inflation. So you got two things happening. You've got the money side of it, which is obviously going down, and the property value is going up because of the lack of supply. So in Australia in particular, we've got more migration than what we've had in previous years, and what that's done, it's put a lot of pressure on the housing market. So we have X amount of people moving in, X amount of houses that are only getting built. So we've got a big shortfall between the supply that we have and the amount of demand that we're getting. So naturally, that's just going to put the prices in a much more difficult position for someone. So if things continue the way they are, I believe it's going to be a lot harder in the future to be able to invest and buy and grow. But that's not to say that it's impossible. There's still a lot of options around it. There's ways where people can still get in and do deals with no money down, still do deals, get into the market as a first home buyer, still invest in properties. They just got to, I guess, look at what they're doing, look at what their end goal is, what their capacity is to be able to invest and develop and do all these things, and work with the right people. So have the right people around them, whether it's brokers, agents, advisors. But then most importantly is to execute and follow through, because a lot of people talk a big game, but then very little actually follow through. So that's my take.
I want to go back to your business a little bit. What's been some of the best strategies you've used to grow your business? It could be marketing, could be people, it could be things. What are some of the biggest strategy that you've used to grow your business that work for you?
Question. Yeah. Good question. I think the one that's paying the most dividends up until now has probably been referral relationships and referral marketing, I guess, where we've built up enough, I guess, goodwill amongst people that we've worked with over the years, that when an opportunity comes up that's within our scope, we're the first ones they think of, particularly if it's someone interstate and we are kind of like their team members interstate. So that's worked really well for us. Obviously, we did the whole direct marketing thing when we first started, and that was really good. But I guess if I was to say what's been the one that made the biggest difference, it's just been focusing on having a good network.
So is it something you're deliberately cultivating, putting systems in place to make sure the network exists, or is it something that has been organically grown
It's more
as you've grown?
organic.
Okay.
Yeah. So look, Adelaide's a small place. We'll start here. Is that if you do a good job by someone, they'll tell 2 or 3 people. You do the bad job by someone, and that's hundreds of people. So we focus on always trying to deliver wherever we can. So trying to do the best that we can by whoever we're working with to start with. Secondly, it's always trying to find ways where we can add value to other businesses who are serving our clients as well. So if it's a broker or a planner or an accountant, they're having a different conversation than we are with our clients. So sometimes what we do can actually add value to what they're doing. So for example, if it's a broker and they're doing a pre-approval for a client, that pre-approval will only last them for say 90 days. if they don't buy something, that pre-approval expires, and then the broker has to go back and do that work all over again. So we've told our brokers, look, if you have a client who's ready to invest, we will, come in and give them some options and make sure that we get them to choose a property and buy something. So the work that you've done does not go to waste. It'll actually come to fruition in some way, shape, or form. And that's worked out really well. So we've had a lot of brokers who have sort of seen, okay, what we do benefits what they do, and what we, and vice versa. So as a result, we've had a lot of, people within that industry going, okay, these guys actually can help us out. So, and it's not just with helping them, helping their clients find the property. Sometimes they just need a rent appraisal because their banks require a letter from an agent to say this property will rent between this much and this much, or they want a sales appraisal. So we then find ways to give them some value to help them, with their work. And then by default, they help us in return.
Gotcha. So you see, you do have a very systematic process that you're using to nurture those referral relationships. When you start a business like yours, it was obviously you by yourself, and you had business partners. And do you still have partners, or is it just you?
Just myself.
Without obviously going through the details, what was the process, obviously finding a partners, and what made you go down the path of like, okay, I want to bring the business just to myself? Because a lot of people will consider, do I go in partnership with somebody? Do I do this for myself? And then you've done both, where you've had partners and now you're by yourself.
Yep.
What's been the process there? Going through what you're in?
I guess firstly, and I'll just pre-frame this, is that I got a lot of love and respect for the business partners that I've had.
Yeah.
And they've helped me out tremendously over the years. The decision to sort of go our own ways was a mutual one, and it was just because there was a lot of outside factors that were sort of interfering with some of the inner workings. But what happened with my first business partners was I was actually an accountant. I realized that accountants played a key role when it came to the financial decisions that my clients were making and their clients are making. So I wanted to find someone who could help me initially with giving advice to my clients about setting up trusts, self-managed super funds, just the tax structure and all that. So I obviously put a call out. Actually, I remember putting a post on Facebook saying,
oh wow,
who's got a good accountant they can recommend, and just tag them. So everyone started tagging their accountants. I started calling all these accountants. Mind you, this is before I launched my business. I started calling all these accountants and booking in time to go see them and have a coffee and have a chat. Met with a lot of them. This one particular one that I caught up with, I just felt really comfortable with, and he was, very supportive of what I was doing, and I could see that he likes helping the small guy. And back then I was very new, very, very green. So I invited him to come and speak at a seminar that I was holding. He came, he did a really good job. And then he referred me to a client that he was working with, but it was a very hard client, and it was kind of like testing me out. So he gave me a hard client, did a really good job with them, serviced them well, made sure they went back with positive feedback. And then he was like, oh, this turned out really good. So he sends me another hard client, and same thing. By the third or fourth client, he's like, Nidal, this could actually work really well because, what you're doing adds to what we do and vice versa, things like that. So I basically made him an offer. I said, look, would you come on board with the business if I just give you a share of it? And you give me some advice and, obviously be the business partner that I need. And obviously that would help me open up a lot of doors as well. So we agreed, we decided to jump on board. He then put me in touch with another person who did a lot of marketing and things like that. So he ended up coming on board with the same offer. And the idea was that how do we get this business to then start hitting certain numbers where it can afford to, keep everyone fed. So that was at the very start. Now, during that period, we had a lot of momentum. We had a lot of growth happening. We had different businesses. I was involved with Yellow Brick Road back then as well.
I remember those days.
And, I had a lot of moving parts. And I think over the years, I just had to sort of make decisions around, okay, what can I let go of to free me up to be able to do more of what I'm good at, which was the property stuff, because I was obviously going in different directions. And as a result, we ended up having to scale down and having to make some decisions around what we will do, what we won't do, and things like that. And until we ended up where we are now.
Oh, that's exciting. So coming from a point when you had a really larger business to now scaling down, did you ever go through that whole process? Because I think, and I've asked this question before to other people, is there's a certain pride that comes to be like, oh, I've got this business, I've got 20 people, I've got 30 people, whatever, to now scaling down to something that is you enjoy, it's manageable for you and stuff like that. Um, how was the mental process going there? Did you have to feel, did you get that feeling of like, oh, maybe I'm going behind or I'm going, like, what was the process? Yeah.
Great question, because it
Mm.
was a very, I guess there was a life-defining period there
Yeah.
behind all of that.
Mm.
So currently, I've got a team of 7 people, so um, bigger than what we scaled down to. But I went down from a big number down to, at one point it was just 2 of us, and then had to rebuild from there. But during that period, yes, I was asking myself those questions, like, what is the outside world going to think of me when they see that I've gone from this to this? What is, what are they going to say about me, because now I'm not doing the same turnover or doing the same number of sales, or I got the same thing. And it came a point where I had to shift my focus from everything that was going on the outside and turn that inwards and start looking at, where were these thoughts coming from? Like, what void am I trying to fill by trying to play this game and trying to put this show on? And it was a period where I had to start peeling back the layers of the onion, as they say, to try and get to the core and get to the root cause. But it was a very liberating period, because I was asking myself the hard questions, like, what am I trying to prove? Who am I? When I strip back all the, take away the suit, take away the car, take away the office, take away the chair, take away all these flashy things that I have around me, the gold, the chains, all this, who am I? And what am I trying to serve here? And what am I trying to do? And it was through those questions and through that inner reflection and that self-reflection that made me realize that none of that is really important. So I don't care about the car doesn't make me, the suit doesn't make me, the money doesn't make me. I'm rich before I even had money. And when I got to I guess, to the source of where all of the void, of me trying to look good, because I think that by looking good, this person's going to perceive me as successful. So because they perceive me as successful, I'm going to have a better status in their mind, which is going to make me feel better. And I started realizing that a lot of this stuff was just empty and shallow and, false beliefs that made me do all these things for nothing. And when I realized that, hold on, the clothes I wear don't define me. The car I drive doesn't define me. The things that I put on my body does not represent who I really am. Because when you peel all of that back, I'm just a son of a migrant family, trying to get ahead in life, trying to do the right thing, trying to have and the things that I realized were important to me, I've already got. And everything that I ever needed, I already had. And when I grasped the meaning of that, that's when life changed. And then it reminded me of a saying, and I'll try and get this right, is that every man lives 2 lives, and he only starts living his second one when he realizes he's got one. And that was a very powerful thing for me, because it made me realize that, what am I trying to do all this show for? Who am I trying to please? Who am I trying to impress? Who am I, And it was this constant battle within myself, trying to prove to myself and to others that I'm worthy. But when I had the hard conversation and that chat with myself and realized that I already had this all within me without having to achieve all these things, that's when life changed. And all of a sudden I kind of let go and things started to fall into place. And life and business and everything has just sort of worked a lot better, because as a person, I've been able to grow, I've been able to expand in some way, shape or form. And as a result, that has allowed me to run my business in a different way. So the people around me now are people who I have similar values with. And I'm not hiring because I need to fill a need. I'm hiring because, one, I want to ensure that the person who is working by my side has the same values, has the same morals, has the same outlook on life, and they just happen to be helping me out in my business. So I stopped hiring like I used to, and then started hiring more based on personal values and what's this person stand for, and is this person going to be part of the dream team? Is this person a long termer? And you start asking yourself a different set of questions.
Okay. I like that very much. I'm always very keen in terms of the process or some of the way you were able to peel down those layers for yourself. Was there any book you read, a course you went through, some specific things you did that were able to help you uh, go through that whole process? Because I want to try and think of someone who's probably going through this process right now, where you've got a business, you're running, it's probably not working the way you want it to, but you're too afraid to let go, and maybe you're feeling a little bit stuck in terms of like, how how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do this? What do you tell to that? What some of practical things you say to that person? I did this. These are some of the questions I ask for myself. This is a book I recommend. This is a course, or this is something. These some practical steps that I actually took. Um, Sometimes when you go through an experience and you come out of the other end, sometimes you don't really stop to think of exactly what did I do, and what are some of the practical things I can tell somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the first step is having that self-realization that everything that you have in your life has been created by you at some point in the past. So when you can take accountability for everything that's in your current situation without playing the victim, or without sort of saying that this is outside of my control, or it's because of someone else, or because of something else I am here, when you can grasp and embrace the idea that you are where you are because of what you created and what you did, what actions and inactions and what decisions and indecisions you made in the past, that's why you're here. When you can grasp that and become real about where your starting point is, that's the first step. Secondly, it's then starting to envision life better than what it actually is. So based on the decisions that you made and where you are now, well, what decisions and different actions are you going to do now to help shape a different future, knowing that it's going to take some time before it comes to fruition? There's a delayed reward there. So if this is what I want, what steps, actions, thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, conversations, ideas, all these things do I need to be embracing and playing in my self on a regular basis in order to achieve the goal that I want to? So once you know where you're going, then the second step, or the third step then, is really about trying to find the people that can support you along the way, because you're the sum of the five closest people to you. So if you're hanging around with uh you know with people on a certain income level, for example, chances are that's probably what you're going to be sort of sitting at. If you want to achieve something that you haven't achieved in the past, then you've got to find people who have been there and are happy to teach, or most of them are happy to teach, but people who've been there and who you can sort of rub shoulders with, or be able to interact and engage with, and get that support from. So don't be scared to ask for help, because one thing I've learned is that people who are successful will always help, you know. So that's the third thing. And then the fourth thing is being able to execute with speed as well, because a lot of people come up with these ideas and they know who they need to talk to, and they got all these people in the network, and they got a lot of talk but very little walk. And I think the key is to be able to execute and be able to build up some momentum, because you can achieve anything that you want as long as you got the right idea, the thoughts, you're consuming the right things, and you're producing and being able to implement the right things along the way as well.
Executing is a very important point. What's your strategy to keep yourself focused, motivated, and moving forward during time of instability, during hard times? Because you've had to for lack of a better word, pull yourself together and keep yourself focused. It could be when you're starting out and growing through sales, keeping yourself focused. It could be growing through your business. It could be like during the all the different phases you've been. What's been your approach to get in there, do what needs to do, get focused, don't get distracted, and we all get distracted. I'm sure you've all
Of
been.
course.
Yeah. What's been the strategy of getting stuff done, especially when things don't.
So I guess if you're asking me like what has created the discipline
The discipline,
to be able
exactly.
to
Yeah.
continually show up and be persistent in that pursuit,
Hmm.
I believe motivation comes from two areas, either inspiration or desperation. For me, I was fortunate enough to have both. And the inspiration part came from knowing what I wanted my life to look like. And I was always inspired by, entrepreneurs and successful business people and, reading lots of books and following people who have been there, done that. The desperation part came from me making commitments in my own life that required me to show up. So right now, if anyone asks me what's my why, it's my family. And I know that if I want to be able to achieve the things that I want for my family, that's going to require me to work very, very hard because, I've got 4 kids, all under 10. They all play sports and school and they, extracurricular activities and they all want to buy stuff and things. So, and I'm looking at their, the private school fees that are coming up. And I'm like, okay, I got to work really hard.
Yeah.
So it almost like forces you to get up and show up, even when you don't feel like it, even when the world's against you, even when, you're kicked to the ground and, you're on your knees, you still got to get up and show up because there are people that are depending on you. And if you don't, you're doing yourself and them a disservice. So, I think it's having that healthy balance of, okay, what am I trying to achieve and what am I moving towards, but also what am I moving away from? And, that story about, me as a 10-year-old thinking to myself, I never want to have my family go through financial hardship is that thing that I'm always moving away from because I never want to have my kids go through, lack of food or money or whatever it is. So I'll do whatever I can to make sure that doesn't happen.
That's pretty cool. How has your role evolved as a leader, starting out by yourself, growing a business, bringing in people? Obviously, you have to learn how to be a leader, to lead people, to delegate all that. How's your role evolved as a leader over the course of running the business?
I would say I've calmed down a lot over the years. So when I first started, I was very ambitious, a lot more ambitious than I am now. And I was a lot more hungry and I was a lot more of a go-getter. So I would work till crazy hours of the evening, nonstop. I was on planes all the time, interstate all the time. Whereas after I went through the exercise of that self-realization and seeing, what am I chasing and what am I doing and what am I, what will I do and what not do for money, things like that. I realized I was burning a lot of effort and a lot of energy for no reason. So now as a leader, I probably do a lot less than what I used to do. I probably focus on the top 20% of things that make the biggest difference rather than on the 80% of the effort that, just keep the wheels turning. And because of my calming down, I'm able to, I guess, analyze my decisions a little bit more. I'm able to look past, that first step that I'm going to take and go, okay, what does this mean? And what does this mean? And if this happens, what will happen there? And, what is my risk in this? And what could potentially go wrong? And I can analyze problems and situations a lot better now than what I did 10 years ago. Whereas when I first started, it was move fast and break things. And as a result, you break a lot of things and you end up having to pay the price and you learn from your own lessons. But I'm definitely a lot calmer now than what I used to be. I'd like to think I'm a bit smarter so I don't make as many mistakes or silly mistakes like I did at the start. But I think if I was to sum it up, I'd probably say more calculated, just because I think about my actions a lot more now and I think about if I do this, it means this, which means this, which means that, and I start thinking of the long term effect of my decisions, and that's something that only comes with experience, I think.
What's what's helped create this calmer version of Nidal? Because if you're calmer, but it still hasn't really you managed to be say you're still very calmer, but I can still see the fire. I can still feel the ambition. What's that? What's helped you become that kind of person? Is it like some practice you're doing? I noticed you've been doing a lot about. Would be doing a lot with fitness and getting into ice baths and lots of personal development.
No, definitely.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah.
I think last couple of years I've spent a lot of time on self reflection and self improvement, personal development, and a lot of these things. And not that I hadn't previously, but I guess the last 2 3 years have been very pivotal in what I've done in my life. Um, I stopped drinking alcohol about 2.5 years ago, and that was probably one of the first starting points that kind of led to everything else.
That's huge.
It was massive, but it was the best thing I did because as a result of stopping the alcohol, it automatically eliminated me from being in certain environments. So I wasn't going out, I wouldn't be at clubs, I wouldn't be in places where other people are fueled by alcohol and potentially, having problems that, you don't want to have and things like that. So that was the first step. As a result, I started to get healthier. So at one point, I hit nearly 100 kilos. I was probably around 98, 99. So I decided that was too heavy, it was no good, and I wanted to lose weight. So I went down to about 80 kilos. So about 20 kilos off, but I fluctuate up and down. So between, 78 to 82, anywhere in that range. Um, and that was a result of me working out, intermittent fasting, and just watching what I eat. So cutting out the sugar and some of the bad processed foods out of my diet. From there, I started doing a lot of meditation. So I love camping, by the way. I love nature and I love going out and being by myself in nature. So as a result of me just meditating in front of a fire pretty much every time I go camping, it started that process of asking myself questions about who I am and where I'm going and what do I stand for and what do I don't stand for and things like that. So as a result of the meditation, I guess it kind of led me into different pathways of self care, which then went into things like breath work, ice baths, and different modalities to help with improving your health. So I wouldn't say it's one particular thing,
Yes.
but it's a combination of things that I've done just to help improve my health and improve my energy levels, improve my um, I guess, the way I feel. And that has then sort of, gone into other areas of my life, which has helped me tremendously.
So I was going to ask, how has that had an impact in your business, as probably more even in your life? Mm,
Absolutely. Well,
mm,
the biggest changes I've seen in my business has been
mm.
in the last couple of years, like 2.5, 3 years, as a result of me improving my health. Because again, your business will grow as much as you do. So when I started challenging myself by waking up every morning at 4 a.m., which is what I've been doing for the last 2.5 years, getting to the gym regardless of how I'm feeling, what the weather's like, etc. Just that one habit alone has improved my life tenfold. Because that time in the morning between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m., when everyone else is asleep, everyone else is still dreaming or doing whatever. I'm up working out. I'm thinking about my day. I'm planning my day ahead, my week ahead. I'm listening to, good stuff. So I've been very mindful of what I consume in terms of what I listen to and what I read and what I absorb into my mind. So just becoming very conscious of that has helped me, I guess, improve my body, improve my mind, and improve my energy levels. And as a result, I'm at work earlier. I'm producing better quality of work. I'm attracting the right people, and just overall, I'm able to handle more because now I'm physically fitter, and my mental capacity has allowed me to take on a little bit more because of just getting it prepped every morning.
This has been really good. I'm actually very inspired by you because I've known you for a long time, and just to see how you look like and
Thank you.
how much work you put in, and we've had lots of different conversations about like health and fitness, and I'm still on that journey. But it's good to see like how far you've come. It's actually quite inspiring. And
Thank you.
and even just like what you're telling me about like changing the attire. Talk about that a little bit because I remember when I met you, you used to be like the one of the best dressers ever. Like you'd always have a nice wash, nice wear, and then you've down to Lululemon's. Like,
Yeah.
what's with that?
Well, I used to be the guy that went into work in a three-piece suit.
Yeah, I remember those
The gold
days.
watches and the chains and all that kind of stuff.
I remember this party one of the many parties we had. It was like very elaborate, and you just even I think you had a tuxedo back then.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
tuxedos were a part of
yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
plus.
You've always been yeah. Like I said, yeah,
Look, again, it was one of those things that I realized for myself is that I don't need to be wearing a suit to
yeah.
feel good about myself. And the reason I used to wear a suit all the time is because I wanted to prove to the world that I was worthy, to prove to them that I had a high status, or prove to someone else that I'm competent at what I do, or I'm a professional, or whatever it may be. When I realized that it was actually a false belief, and what mattered to me more was being comfortable in my own skin, being comfortable in my clothes as well, because some clothes are, they restrict you and you can't move well. And that, so I love the idea, especially being fit and active. I wanted, clothes that would support my new lifestyle. So if I want to jump on a bike and go for a bike ride during the day, I can do that. But I couldn't do that in a suit before. So there was a couple of parts to it, but the main thing was really, um, wanting to minimize and simplify my life, because I realized that every morning when I woke up, I had to sit there and make a decision about what I wanted to wear. And I might spend 5-10 minutes between, changing shirts. Oh, this doesn't match with this, and change my shoes or whatever. Whereas now I've eliminated any thought of what I have to wear, because I know it's just going to be a black t-shirt, black pants, and black shoes, and I'm out the door. If I've got something formal going on, I'll put on a black sports jacket, and then that, does the trick. And being that we're in 2025, where it's socially acceptable for people to be wearing a t-shirt and just basic pants when you're talking, because it's no longer about how this person looks, it's what value does this person have,
the substance. Yeah,
and what's exactly. So, and when I realized that my substance was not because of my clothes or my car, and it was because of me being able to connect with someone, and being able to produce value for them, then everything else changed. And it's like, okay, well, let me wear what I'm comfortable wearing, what I know that I can wear every single day without having to think about it. I can, not worry about having to go shopping and things like that. And again, that exercise of getting rid of a lot of clothes, and just simplifying my life was very liberating, because again, there's less moving parts of things that I have to manage. So I don't have to worry about all the fancy stuff. It's okay, let's just get out there and start our day.
and get started there. This has been really good. As we start to come to the end of the interview, you're a dad of four, been married for a long time to a beautiful wife. I find that as entrepreneurs and people who like do this, you know, high pressure things like business or high careers, it's always a constant challenge to manage the demands of your ambition, your career, your business, and family. What's been your best strategy to, I guess, not juggle the whole thing and make sure that you're able to be on top of the different things?
I think who you are in one area of your life is a representation, and it filters onto other areas of your life as well. So, my daughter the other day was asking me about why I'm no longer president of this community group that I'm in. And I said to her, I was trying to explain to her, because I'm trying to get more balance in my life, and I'm trying to do less things outside so I got more time for them. And she said something. She's like, yeah, but Baba, when we see you up there, that actually makes us want to be like you more. And it sort of gave me the lesson that they are learning by what I do. And if I want to be the best example for my kids, then I've got to be playing full out. I've got to be out there, not being scared. I have to basically show them what I'm trying to teach them, which is you want to go out there and make your life a success. And the way you do that is by working hard, by being a good person, by, doing all these right things. So I think I've got a responsibility to make sure I keep playing at that level for the sake of my family, because they are looking at me and they will do what I do rather than what I say. And uh, I think that is probably the main thought that I keep in my mind when I'm thinking about this whole work-life balance. But at the same time, I also realize that I cannot keep going the way I am now forever. So you have to understand, well, I've had to embrace that there are different phases of life. I've been through the phase where I was hustling and working hard and doing all these things. And that was okay whilst my kids were still young. Now I've embraced the dad period. I've embraced the family man phase of my life, and I'm really enjoying that. So I'm all in on my family life, and it doesn't mean that I have to sacrifice anything in business. It just means that I have to be selective over what I say yes to and no to. And now the people around me in business know that when it's home time, I'm with my kids. They are a priority, and then work follows afterwards. From time to time, emergencies happen, things happen, you have to jump in, you have to be all in on that. We understand that. The kids get to see that, okay, when things get serious, dad gets serious, but when things are okay, dad's a cool guy. And I've really enjoyed just sort of reminding myself that whatever I'm demonstrating in front of my kids, that becomes their reality in the future as well. So I want to try and put the best that I can forward for them uh, to I guess absorb and learn from and things like that. And my hope is that they will be inspired to a point where they will push themselves and they will try and get the most out of themselves later on in life. And that's, one of the main driving factors.
It's exciting. Final question is, what are you excited about your business moving forward? What are the things you're really excited in putting in place? What level do you want to grow your business into moving forward?
Yeah, very good question, because just recently we've been talking about, what do we want this business to look like in the future? And again, I spoke about how we just started off with first home buyers and then we moved to investors and that. And just recently we had some conversations around, do we, look at doing more traditional real estate work? Do we look at more commercial real estate, more business? And we're looking at, being able to cater for different parts of the market, I guess. So the most exciting part is that there is a whole world of unknown that we haven't discovered yet. And that to me excites me, because every new experience, it comes with its own challenges and rewards and things that, like it's part of the journey. I guess the thing that sort of relates to me most is that I know that my growth has not sort of come to an end, and I'm only, on the way. So the thing that excites me is, look, I have this belief that the best is yet to come. I know that I've been planting a lot of seeds over the last few years or over the last decade, which some have started to come to fruition and some are coming to fruition and some that will come to fruition in the future. So I guess I've always got that little excitement that is what could happen next.
That's exciting. Thank you so much for coming to the show. What is the best way for people who are listening to this to find you, connect with you, and potentially do something with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's 2025, so everyone's on social media and everyone's contactable. Yeah, Facebook is probably my first one that's where I spend most of my time out of the social platforms. I'm a bit of a older school. Um, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, all the socials basically.
Awesome.
But yeah, otherwise they can reach out through you, and I'd be more than happy to help.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming in and really appreciate your insight today.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Awesome.